What's up, everyone? It's the lawyer you know. We're doing a little live discussion because the autopsy information, I won't say report, just came out on Gabby Petito. I just got finished listening to the medical examiner's press conference where he explained the cause and manner of death, what information he could share and could not share, as well as answered a bunch of questions at the end, but most of those answers are Wyoming statutes don't allow me to give any more information other than the cause and manner of death. So we'll start with the cause and manner of death off the top. I'm sure I'll be repeating it as people come in and join. But if you like our page, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are interested in the Gabby Petito content and Brian Laundrie content, make sure you like this page and we'll keep bringing the content to you. This is 2 videos in 1 day on this very case because stuff's happening. And when stuff happens, we try to jump on and we try to discuss it. We try to discuss it in real time if time allows. I have an appointment starting in about 45 minutes. So I'll be here for about 30 to 45 minutes to answer questions after I run through some of the stuff I found interesting from the coroner talking about what happened in the autopsy and what's in the report. So to start out, the big ticket items are what is the cause and what is the manner of the death. We already knew the manner of the death was homicide. But what's interesting is he talked about what the 4 potential manners of death are that they look at and that they eliminate if they find it is not the manner of death, right? So it's you can learn from the manners of death they didn't choose as much as you can from the manner of death that they did choose. So the 4 potential manners of death are homicide, suicide, natural causes, and accidental death. So obviously this autopsy and their investigation has ruled out an accidental death. It has also ruled out a natural death. She didn't have a heart attack. There was nothing that happened, a brain aneurysm or some freak accident that happened, not even an accident, some natural occurrence that caused her death. They ruled that out. We know that. We also know they ruled out accidental death. She's in the wilderness. She's in the forest. She could have fallen out of a tree she was climbing, tripped, fell, slid down the side of a mountain. Lots of things can happen that are accidents when you're out in the wilderness to cause death. None of those happened in this case. And then obviously we know it was a homicide. And then when we get to the cause of death, it was strangulation. And he didn't give us all the different causes of death that they come up with, but any of us that are crime junkies or criminal defense lawyers or personal injury lawyers dealing in wrongful death cases, we know that there are lots of different causes of death. But in this case, they confirmed that it was strangulation as the main cause of death here, or as the cause of death. So that rules out blunt force trauma, that rules out a bunch of different things that could have happened. But it is right in line with what a lot of people have surmised in this case. Strangulation fits in most of the, I don't even want to call them conspiracy theories at this point, but people did guess that it would be something like blunt force trauma to the head or strangulation. One of the major interesting things, that's my reminder of my appointment coming up. One of the major things that happened or that we found out is they believe her body was in the wilderness for 3 to 4 weeks prior to them finding her mid to late September. So that means at some point in August is when she died. Somebody asked if they have an actual date of death. He said they have not filled out the death certificate yet, but in Wyoming, you are allowed to put an approximate death or approximate date of death. And that's what he thinks they'll do, not an exact date, which makes sense, especially for a body that's been out in the wilderness for a long time. Just so you know, whenever there are charging documents, prosecutors can pick a date range or an approximate date that a crime was committed. They don't always have to pinpoint the exact date or the exact time. So this falls in line with that. What else did we learn? He was asked a bunch of questions. Did Brian Laundrie do this? These were not great questions. And going along with this case, you could hear some of the reporters that had media credentials to ask questions in this case were the snack pack and some guy that said figuring it out with this guy or something like that. So there were all sorts of people there, bloggers and, ABC Action News and stuff like that was there. And he kept asking, is it Brian Laundrie? Are you positive it's Brian Laundrie? And he kept saying, listen, the only thing Wyoming state statutes allow me to say is manner and cause of death. I can't really give you anything else about what the autopsy showed, but go ahead and ask questions. And then some people did a really good job of asking questions. Somebody asked, why did this take a month? Please explain to us the process. Well, he said it took a month because they wanted to be exact, they wanted to be detailed, they wanted to use various specialists, and they did a toxicology report that they had to wait for it before it was returned to make sure they did everything right. Okay? Some people are going to hate my response to this, but what that makes my ears perk up if I'm a criminal defense lawyer is if there are any mistakes or any problems with this autopsy, when I cross-examine or depose this medical examiner, this coroner, I'm going to say, so you took a month because you wanted to be exact, right? You wanted to be detailed, right? You wanted to get all the specialists you might need, right? You wanted to get the toxicology report back, right? You wanted to make sure everything was right before you submitted this autopsy. Is that correct? He's going to say yes. If he says no, I'm going to play this press conference back for him and say, remember when you said that? And then if there's a big mistake on there, or any mistake at all, I'm going to say, well, then why was this wrong? This autopsy report was not exact, was it? It was not as detailed as you want it to be, was it? So those words can come back to bite if there are mistakes in this autopsy once a criminal defense lawyer gets their hands on it and maybe can find some things that were done wrong or not preserved properly by law enforcement. That's just something that happens in criminal cases. Again, another thing that was interesting is people asked, could you tell if her body was dragged? Was it buried? Was it placed there? Did it fall there? Was she murdered in the spot that you found her? He couldn't answer any of those questions, but he did say her body was consistent with something that would be outside in the wilderness for 3 to 4 weeks. So you can try to guess if you want to based on that she might have been hidden or buried. How would somebody not see that for 3 to 4 weeks? Or it could have been in a remote part of the wilderness. A lot of explanations for that we're just not sure about at this point. I'm going to keep going through what I saw in the press conference to keep you guys up to date if you haven't seen it yet. But if you do have questions, ask them in the chat. I will get to them a little later on in the video. All right. What else did we find? They did take DNA samples and they did do a toxicology report, which we talked about. A couple questions were asked that he actually did answer. Question number 1, was Gabby pregnant? Answer, no. Question number 2, were there drugs in her system? Answer, I can't tell you the results of the toxicology report. All I can do is let you know the cause and manner of death. So he's choosing to answer some questions and not others, and there may be reasons for that, right? If there were drugs in her system, I'm sure he's not going to want to say that on live TV with her parents watching, her parents grieving. They still haven't gotten the remains to her parents yet. So there are lots of reasons why he might not want to bring that information out. He doesn't want to make her look bad if there were drugs in her system. But based on the fact that he said no, she wasn't pregnant and answered some of the other questions, it leads me to believe, or at least to surmise, that if there were no drugs in her system, he may have mentioned that. That's total speculation. There's no evidence for that. But I'm just trying to read between the lines of his press conference here, right? Somebody said, you're going to be an important witness in the case. That's true, which is why I bring up when he said we have to be exact. We have to get everything right. All of those things are important because he is going to be a witness in this case. If there is a case, if they find Brian Laundrie. Let's see, what else? Okay, some of the things they did as part of the autopsy, a full body CT. They had a forensic pathologist and anthropologist look at the body, and they did a toxicology report, as we know. So they did a bunch of different tests and studies and had people, like he said, specialists come in and help making sure they got it right. He was asked, did you rule out other manners or other causes of death, other manners of death? How did you come to homicide? Did you know right away? How did you come to strangulation? Did you know right away? He basically said, we did eliminate everything else because when we do an examination, we come with what we believe the cause of death is and the manner of death is based on what our data shows us and our investigation basically shows us. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, so one big quote, and I don't want to be the conspiracy theorist or the gotcha guy, but he was asked a question. You're a medical examiner in this small town in Idaho. What was it like dealing with this media frenzy? And he says, it was a media frenzy. I I'm guessing it's because she was a blogger of some sort, and that's why this happened. But here's the kicker that just struck me when he said it. He said it's really unfortunate because there are a lot of other deaths that result from domestic violence that we deal with that don't get as much attention. He's basically saying those deaths are important too. Everybody should, care about all the living people in the world, and every death is tragic, especially as a result from domestic violence. That's not strangulation, right? Just because somebody gets strangled doesn't mean it's domestic violence. She could have been strangled by a stranger, by some serial killer traveling throughout the wilderness. She could have been strangled by, hanging, which we know it wasn't because that would be suicide dying by strangulation. This was homicide dying by strangulation. But saying domestic violence when she was alone with her fiancé, where there was a domestic violence stop that we all saw the body cam footage of, indicates to me that this coroner believes it was Brian Laundrie, even though he was clear that he was not going to say that, was not going to have an opinion on that. That is not up to him. That's on the investigating officers. It's on the FBI. They asked if the FBI was going to put out some other warrant. He said, ask the FBI. It's not what I do. I don't determine who did it. I just determine, what the cause and manner of death are. But again, he did say it was a result of domestic violence. It was not an official statement by him, but it was as part of his answer to why is this getting so much attention versus the other deaths that happened. So I did think that was important. And, he did say it. So that's something that I also expect to come out in his future statements, depositions at trial. If I'm the defense attorney, I may say, you were looking for this, weren't you? Because you thought it was Brian Laundrie. You were looking for this manner of death and cause of death because you thought it came from the domestic violence. Before you did this autopsy, did you see that body cam video? That's a question I would have for him. Did you see the body cam video? What did you know about this case before you filed this autopsy report? What did you know about this case? Was it just any other body that you were looking at trying to determine what happened, or were there other factors at play as you gave your report? That is going to be important, and I think that answer from him is an indication that he may have known some other factors and circumstances of what was going on, and how can you not, right? I mean, I think that's fair to know that stuff's happening. All right. I'm going to get in the chat here, go through some comments for about 15 to 20 minutes. So if you have a question, get them in now. I'll ask again, subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video if you're here, 150 of you. Hopefully we have 150 likes already on there. And make sure you follow along with this content. Let me know what you want to hear and what you want to see, because that's what I like to do. All right, let's see. Lukey, crazy coincidence. You're poking around. Well, you found the right channel. Hopefully you subscribe now. Okay, so I am Ezekiel. Manual strangulation or with a rope. Somebody asked the medical examiner that, and he said he could not answer that. Some other reporter asked, sometimes you can tell the strangulation because this bone is broken, or you could tell something with the esophagus. How did you determine it was strangulation? And he would not answer those questions further. He would just say that it was homicide by strangulation. So we don't know if it was with hands or with the rope. And again, in the video I did earlier today, I talked about how we may find out some information about the autopsy report, but I'm sure it's only going to be some of the information or partial information. And that's exactly what we got. They're not going to give us all the information because it just doesn't make sense at this point. So Gabrielle, blunt force trauma as contributing factor is still possible. He didn't make it sound that way. There could have been, bruising on the face to indicate other domestic violence, which is maybe why he said that without telling us. But the cause of the death was strangulation. It doesn't mean there weren't other things on her body that they found to show some kind of physical abuse. That happens a lot in wrongful death cases or murder cases, that they were abused for days or they have marks around their wrists to show they were tied up. But those are not the causes of death. So I think it's important to have that distinction. Well World TV, I did not see the statement from Brian Laundrie's or the Laundrie family lawyer yet. I came straight here after watching the press conference. So Helen, if she was pregnant, wouldn't that change the charges? Potentially it could. It could be a double homicide. They would have to show that Brian knew she was pregnant, though, a lot of times with that in order to make it first-degree intentional homicide. But again, those are things that are, going down the road that we don't really know at this point. I'm surprised he answered it, to be honest with you. How he was answering all the other questions, I thought he wouldn't answer that question. And it would not have given me any indication then from the toxicology report if he just said, no, I'm not going to answer that either. But the fact that he answered one about her medical condition or something he found out that only he would know, that we wouldn't know, but not answer the other was kind of a weird difference to me. Home-based media, I have no idea. How much is strangulation used in murder? Is it a high percentage for this method? I wouldn't say a high percentage. The murder cases that we have, the majority is weapons, firearms. So that's what I've seen, at least for the majority, but that's just kind of my circle that I've seen. I'm not sure about, nationwide. Yeah, Diana Rose, when he said domestic violence, he may have given something away. KC, I am wrong, or am I wrong for blaming the parents of both for allowing them to travel alone? Parents of the guy knew a lot about their son being such a coward and allowed to go this far. They're both adults. So unless we're going to change the laws in this country, it's tough to blame parents when their adult children make decisions. We don't know what their life was like or what their parenting was like, but I don't think their parents have a lot of control over adult children. And that's exactly what somebody said right after. Correct, Thad the man. That's exactly what he said. Melistasi, that's why you're here. So Christina Moreno, the Walsh question. This is the guy that came on and he's like, something with Walsh. This is Mr. Walsh. Are you positive it was Brian Laundrie? He's never going to answer that. Nobody's going to answer that question at this point in the investigation, right? They haven't been able to do so much. The medical examiner's never going to answer, I know who did it definitively. So Tracy Lee Bryant, did the coroner state whether they found DNA under her fingernails? He did not state that. He did not state any other findings of what they found in the body because Wyoming state statute doesn't allow him to do anything but cause and manner of death. That's what he kept repeating. But he did say that they took DNA samples and did do testing. So you better believe if this case goes to trial, there will be DNA evidence. At least I believe that. Good. Glad you've been subscribed. Everybody should follow suit. So what effect does that statement have on on trial? Sorry, let me try again. What effect does that statement have on a trial, if any? Well, like I said, if I'm the criminal defense lawyer, I'm going to say you were looking for a domestic violence type of cause of death. You found strangulation because you think it fit Brian Laundrie's narrative because you watched that domestic violence body cam footage, if all that's true, right? In a discovery deposition, I can find out. Did he watch any other footage? Was he reading any articles? Was he watching any news channels or videos or anything like that to kind of give him this frame of mind while he's doing this autopsy? And he's just supposed to be looking for cause and manner of death. But we know now we got a little view in his mind, which is why they have to be so careful in these press conferences. And that's also why they didn't just come out and do the autopsy, come out and tell the media stuff, because little things can be picked apart by lawyers in the future. And rightfully so, I've got to be honest. People can say what they want about lawyers. In our intro, we say people hate lawyers because of stuff like this, because they're saying, oh, you're nitpicking. But he said it, and I think that's the truth. And a lot of times, we don't know the truth. A lot of times, people are coached and ready and prepped to testify, and we don't get what the truth is. And sometimes the truth comes out in a slip when they're talking about something else. But once you know the truth, that can be very important. And you don't want coroners that, and I'm not saying this coroner did that at all, but in any case, you don't want coroners going into an investigation trying to prove something, some theory that they have or something they think that hasn't been proven yet, because that can affect the entirety of a case. And you don't want that. Let's see here. Diana Rose, they'll look until they decide to stop looking. So Miss Wheelassie, Regardless of whether Brian is ever brought to trial, could his parents potentially be held accountable for withholding evidence? We don't know that they've withheld evidence at this point, really, or that they've obstructed justice or anything like that. If he is not found, I would be surprised if there were any charges brought against his parents, because you can't really have aiding and abetting or anything like that if there's no underlying criminal that you're aiding and abetting that's been proven as a crime. So it's very difficult, and usually it doesn't happen. It's usually not practical to prosecute the parents in a case like this, unless they can find that they did lie to the cops or point them in the wrong direction and know that Brian committed this crime, which I don't think they're ever going to be able to prove that without Brian. All right, well, world, breaking news here for us. Laundrie attorney texted, Gabby Petito's death at such a young age is a tragedy. While Brian Laundrie is currently charged with an unauthorized use of a debit card belonging to Gabby, Brian is only considered a person of interest in relation to Gabby Petito's demise. At this time, Brian is still missing, and when he is located, we will address the pending fraud charge against him. So he is sticking to yes, that's the end of the text. I just want to confirm that. Thank you so much for that, Well World TV. I appreciate that. So yes, and somebody else asked, why haven't they given a warrant for his homicide yet? Listen, we can all sit here, we can talk. We're not the law enforcement officers on this case. We're not the prosecutors on this case. You've got to have a lot more than what they have to prove he committed this crime. There's got to be something that puts all this together, that holds all this together, rather than just I don't want to say sketchy timeline, but an imperfect timeline, right? I think we're gathering evidence and we're getting there, but we're not there yet. And they could any day now, especially now that we have this strangulation that the coroner is saying is a part of a domestic violence. I wouldn't be surprised if it came out anytime soon. But at this point, the Laundrie lawyer is correct. It's just these fraud charges that are pending against him at this point, not a warrant for intentional homicide. Home-based media, that's what we do here. We answer questions. Go subscribe, like the video, ask more questions. So Tom McAllister, I don't necessarily know if I would say it was a reason for appeal, unless the defense lawyers can really show that it affected this autopsy and that it was just an incorrect autopsy or a doctored autopsy. Sure, that could be a reason for appeal in the future. But I think maybe it'll just go to show bias against the coroner by the defense lawyers. I wouldn't necessarily, it's too early right now to say something's going to be an issue on appeal. So Fran Miller, he answered that she was not pregnant. So Kamisha Luffridge, could charges be brought against the parents if they find that they've been hiding their son or knew where he's been? I think that could potentially open up charges because they've literally and physically, after my video today, if you watched it, we talked about Brian's dad actually going down to the reserve, pointing in areas that Brian might be or likes to frequent. At that point, they could be obstructing justice and giving false information to law enforcement officer to aid and abet their son, pointing their attention in one direction, wasting resources while Brian gets away. That could potentially open up criminal charges. All right, good question by Well World TV. Why would the coroner do a press conference? Do you think that was a tactic by law enforcement? There's been a lot of pressure. The media's been involved in this case from day one, and there's been a lot of pressure. And every state has certain things that are public record. And it sounds like in Wyoming, as you mentioned from the statute, the public information you can find from this is the cause and manner of death, which is homicide by strangulation. Now, why he did a press conference and answer questions, I don't know. That was their decision. He definitely did not have to do that. They could have just let it out to media that here's the cause and manner of death and let it be. Somebody else could have answered question, a PR person, prosecutor, somebody else could have answered questions, but they sent the coroner out to answer questions. That was their decision. Cynthia Gray, are you ever contacted to consult on cases like this one? Yes, we have been contacted, especially locally, to consult on, to handle cases obviously like this, but also to consult on them and go do some shows and stuff on them. But I prefer to do it on my channel where there's no red tape, no holds barred. I am stuck with what I say because this is my firm, this is our firm, and the lawyers here, we stand behind what we believe, we stand behind what we say, we stand behind what we do. We don't always agree with the media or news channels or angles or, ways that they want us to couch things or say things. We like saying them the way we think is right in an unbiased way, just looking at it like a lawyer and giving, the angles both sides and what both sides might be thinking. So that's why we like to do it on our channel most. And that's why YouTube's so cool. It gives you the opportunity to do that. So Well World TV, as extra as the Laundrie lawyer seems to be acting, do you think they'll run out of money before they even go to trial? So you would be surprised how many lawyers, the answer is I don't know. I don't know how much money they have. I don't know when they're going to run out of money, but you'd be surprised how many lawyers take high profile cases for free for the publicity. You'd be even more surprised how many people call us asking us to take cases for free for the publicity. I've never heard a lawyer who was super happy how that, worked out at the end, but maybe it's possible. And I don't know, maybe he's doing it for the publicity. I don't know. So Miss Wee Lassie, again, like I just said, why is his lawyer doing all this? He's getting a lot of publicity for it. Unfortunately, a lot of it is bad publicity. I was just talking about this with some of my friends the other night, all the one-star reviews he's getting on Google, which, listen, whatever you think about him, that's horrible. Don't do that. Don't be that type of person. If you didn't use somebody's services and it's their livelihood, don't go on Google and give them a one-star because, you saw them on TV or you don't agree with something they did in another case. That's supposed to be for people that use their services, so other people that are considering using them can look at what prior clients think about them, not what, some kind of mob does following media or following some other YouTuber or something like that. Have some grace on people. He's doing his job. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. Don't hire him if you need a lawyer. But I feel bad for him with all the one-star reviews. But, he's getting a lot of publicity on this case, and I think that's probably why he keeps commenting and doing all of this. So Megan Graves, good point. I guess I don't understand why people think the parents are hiding him. I think initially they knew where he was, but things have escalated since then. So I think initially people think that because they think, what would I do with my kid? I'd probably hide him. They think, parents are always going to be on their kid's side. But I don't know. I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that it's guaranteed that his parents are pointing law enforcement in the wrong way or giving him money or helping him hide or anything like that. I don't know. I honestly just don't know. Jessica Plumpton, yes, literally, yes. And it's if you get a lawyer that would, I'm gonna pass on that. It's something I'm not gonna bring up on YouTube. So Well World TV, good question. I'm gonna hold this for a future video. It's a long answer. BS detector. Would you take this case? So I've never spoken to Brian Laundrie. I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about his parents, but I don't see why not. If he was charged with a crime and he needed a criminal defense lawyer and he came and wanted to hire me, I don't see why not. We handle some cases like this. There are certain cases I draw the line on. This would not be one of them. But yeah, there's no reason I would say that I wouldn't take this case specifically. All right, I'm going to give it about 2 more minutes, getting close to my next meeting time. About 2 more minutes for you guys to put any more questions you want in the chat before we go. Thanks for joining for this kind of last second live. It was a lot of fun. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and like this video if you've made it this far. We're going to keep doing updates on the Petito case. We did some more updates on the Lori Vallow case earlier this week. We've got a live tomorrow talking more about Elizabeth Holmes. So if you've been following that case, Pete and I are going to be on a live to answer questions. Pete's going to give another update of what's happened since the last video last week. And we're also going to keep talking about Rittenhouse. That one got a lot of comments and a lot of thoughts and questions on it as well. So if you have questions on those cases, go check out those videos and leave questions in the comments. All right, let's see. Igor, what do you think about the media's role in high-profile cases such as this one? Do they have a role? I don't think they have a necessary role, but for reporting to the people what's going on, right? So reporting to people what's going on is important, and that should be the role of the media because we are all citizens of this country. We all need to know what's going on in our courthouses. We all need to know if law enforcement is doing something wrong, if the government's doing something wrong, if judges are doing something wrong, if lawyers are doing something wrong, or if there is a maniac out in our, city, in our society. They're supposed to report on that things and let the people know what's going on. But I think sometimes media tries to drive the bus, and that is definitely not their role. All right, we've got a super chat question. Top of the list here. New Chris. Can someone strangle somebody in self-defense? So somebody posted in the chat earlier that they read a study that it takes 4 minutes to kill somebody by strangulation. I'm sure that can vary from person to person depending on their biological makeup. However, I think an argument can be made that you can strangle someone in self-defense. And I think you may be hitting on, based on the body cam footage, something that a defense lawyer may use in this case. That Gabby attacked him again. He, did this in self-defense, did it too strong or too hard or for a little bit too long or something like that. And then she ended up dead and he freaked out and left. I absolutely think it's possible. I don't think it's likely. I think a blunt force trauma or somebody being shoved and tripping and falling and hitting their head, as we've seen in so many movies and shows, it happens in real life as well. I think that's more likely or more showing self-defense, or even a hit that she tripped and fell, something like that, versus strangulation, which seems to have taken longer. So I do think the cause of strangulation does indicate probably not self-defense, but it's absolutely possible. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Kirsten Van Hoek, does the autopsy change the intensity of the search for Brian? I don't think so. I think it's already about as intense as it can get. Thad the Man, yeah. We do tons of pro bono work. That's different. Pro bono work is different than somebody coming and saying, hey, I've got this high profile case. Do you want to represent me for free? In my opinion. Christina Moreno, I don't know. And I know you keep asking, a couple people keep asking, do I think he's dead? I have no idea. I couldn't last in the wilderness this long, I'll tell you that. But I'm not even a mediocre survivalist. All right. I think I've gotten to all the questions I've seen in the chat. But as always, I appreciate everybody coming for the live. It was a lot of fun. Like the video if you want more content on Gabby Petito, but that's all we've got for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you follow our channel, get involved, get in the comments, ask questions, get in the community page, because we build our content from what you want to hear. I'm a lawyer. I handle cases like this. We have a full caseload. So if I'm going to look at a case in the media, a high profile case, or give any breakdowns or talk about any case, I want it to be the ones you guys care about. They all have interesting factors, in my opinion. So always let me know what you want to hear, because that's what we want to bring to you. Thank you so much for the live. We'll be with you next time.